From the studios and broadcast center of HC Media and HCTV 22, this is Point of Reference with Frank Novak. Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Novak, and welcome to this edition of Point of Reference. Tonight, we talk with Massachusetts State Auditor Diana DiZoglio in her efforts to follow through on a ballot question that 72% of you voted in favor of in auditing the state legislature relative to financials and contracts that state representatives and senators are involved in. It has been a struggle to achieve that goal and that she was elected to do. Why is that? Let's find out the answer to that question and more as we welcome State Auditor Diana DiZoglio to the program. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Frank. It's great to be here today.
Great to have you here, and I need you to be able to help us sort out these questions. This was on the ballot, and that was on the ballot. How long ago has that become law?
Yes, thank you. So first and foremost, it's great to be in the great city of Haverhill, my home district, so to speak. I am so humbled to have the opportunity to serve as your state auditor right now. I've served for 6 years as your state representative, 4 years as your state senator, and now have the humble opportunity of representing you in the auditor's office, living about 10 minutes down the street from here, over the border in Methuen. And really just want to say thank you to all of the Haverhill residents and beyond who came out and signed the petitions, helping us to collect over 100,000 signatures to get this issue of auditing the state legislature on the ballot. We were able to get those signatures thanks to a lot of folks from, my hometown, the city of Haverhill and the Merrimack Valley. And then, of course, the rest of the residents in the Commonwealth chipped in across the board. But once we got that on the ballot, we saw a 72% margin of victory at the ballot box in November, which is unbelievable. Elected officials, generally speaking, myself included, can only, wish for numbers like that at the ballot box when there's opposition of any kind. So we were really pleased with a 72% margin of victory where Republicans and Democrats joined together. People from all across the political spectrum came together to say we want transparency, we want accountability, we want accessibility from our state legislature. And Frank, as you know, our state legislature is frequently ranked as the least transparent state legislature in the entire nation.
I did not know that.
Not subject to public records laws, not subject to open meeting laws, the same laws that they impose on our cities and towns locally, here like in the city of Haverhill. They themselves exempt themselves from those same transparency standards. So we do have one of the least transparent, if not the least transparent, and recently deemed the least effective state legislature in the entire nation. And when folks went to go vote in November, they made it crystal clear that they expect increased transparency and accountability in the form of an audit. Now, since we have voted for that, it is law. It is no longer up for discussion or debate or committee hearings, or any of the things that legislators are currently trying to do to stymie the efforts of our office to fulfill the will of the voters by conducting this audit. And it is law, but it is being violated right now by the legislature, who is refusing to comply with an audit being conducted by the Office of State Auditor in compliance with the law. This has been the law now for a couple of months, and it has been completely ignored. They refuse to give basic financial documents and state contracts to our office for review, citing that they believe there are constitutional concerns. But I continually say the Constitution is there to protect the people, not the politicians. 72% of the people voted for this. If they have concerns, they should take their issues to the Supreme Judicial Court to get an opinion. They refuse to do so because they have said things like compliance is in the eye of the beholder and refuse to follow the law.
That was actually publicly said.
Yes.
Now, I heard that, and I wanted to verify that with you because it just makes me think, if a law is supposed to be in the eye of the beholder, maybe it's an improper analogy, but I can only think of the person that said that was a state legislator.
Mm-hmm. The Speaker of the House said that when it comes to the law, essentially compliance is in the eye of the beholder, because he didn't want to have to explain further or give further information about why he was violating the audit law.
Well, I've got to say that in that sort of a scenario, I hope the speaker does not travel down 495 with a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit. And if he decided to go at 100 miles an hour, just pulled over by a state trooper, would his line be, I'm sorry, that 65-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is law, is in the eye of the beholder? It doesn't copy.
He might try to do something like that, considering his remarks lately, but certainly we know, those of us who live in the, working world here where we don't have absolute power like Mr. Speaker seems to have at the State House, certainly we would not expect to get away with being able to do something like that and try to tell somebody that we are able to violate the law like he has been able to do. But he is being permitted to violate the law by our Attorney General, who is refusing to enforce compliance with the law. Now, our office audits. I am not an attorney. I am simply trying to fulfill the will of the voters in executing this audit. I've asked for financial documents. I've asked for state contracts. We have not received those. They've refused. And so I have gone to our state's Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, and I have asked her to help us with enforcing the law, as she is the chief law enforcement officer of this Commonwealth. And last year, when I asked for her assistance, she actually sided with the legislature and she supported the Speaker and the Senate President. And she wrote about a 17-page rebuttal, to my recollection, stating all the reasons why she believed the Speaker and the Senate President and the legislature did not have to comply with an audit of their finances, processes, and procedures in accordance with what we had actually done previously over 100 times before throughout history. This is not something new, by the way, Frank. This is not some random idea that I came up with. This is actually something that always happened until recent years, when certain legislative leaders decided that they didn't want to comply, so they were going to push back and stop showing us their records. It's absolutely unacceptable. And when the Attorney General did that last year and refused to help us back then, the ballot question was actually born out of that. Because because the Attorney General wouldn't at that time defend the law as it was at that time, which said all departments should be audited, I went and joined together with a group of advocates, and we joined forces with people across the Commonwealth to get this issue on the ballot, to update the law to make it clearer than it already was that the legislature was required to be audited. We passed that. The Attorney General allowed that to go on the ballot after vetting it for constitutionality. She vetted it for constitutionality and approved it going forward to the ballot over the objections of the Senate. The Senate didn't want it to go to the ballot. They wanted it to be a constitutional amendment rather than a statutory ballot initiative. But the Attorney General approved it going to the ballot as it did, and therefore cleared it. And now after getting it passed, we're simply having a hard time getting the Attorney General to help us enforce it. And what we keep hearing is that she needs more time and more information to decide if she's going to side with the people on this matter, and that she still isn't sure if she wants to enforce this law, and she still isn't sure if she wants to defend the people on this. I think that with a 72% margin of victory at the ballot box, that is a very clear mandate, and it's very clear that people from all political parties, even those who are unaffiliated, the most conservative to the most liberal, they want this to happen. So it's my responsibility to follow the law. It's legislators' responsibility to follow the law, and it's the Attorney General's responsibility to enforce the law. And right now, none of those things are able to happen, and they're going to continue to go, undone, so to speak, until the Attorney General decides to enforce the law and allow us to proceed to court.
This, from anybody's observation, I would suggest, was a massive grassroots effort that worked to the point of they're gaining 72% of Massachusetts voters being in favor of this. To that end, for people that would like to be involved and call their own state representatives or state senators, we are going to provide on the screen the telephone number of the State House, which is 617-722-2722. 2000. That's 617-722-2000. That means when you call this number, you'll hit 1 to be directed to your state representative's location, and if you want to go to the Senate, you'll hit 2 on the extension. Also, we're going to have on the screen the Attorney General's telephone number, which is 617-727-2200. That's 617-727-2200. Because each person that calls oftentimes is representative of 20 to 35 people or a lot more that don't call but have the same type of question. And one of the things that you might want to do in calling is to see about moving this question forward to a resolution for what you voted for.
That's good. Look at that. I remember it from my days in the legislature.
So if you're able to put that, if you're able to call your respective senator or representative, in addition to the Attorney General's office, to see if you can get some answers on this, that would help, I believe, the state auditor, DiZoglio, and would also help you. I would also like to make reference to the fact that we are not going to ever ask anybody to do anything we wouldn't do ourselves. So I reached out as an example to our state delegation, and they were responsive. Mm-hmm. They, in fact, were responsive, and I'm very pleased and I'm very proud of that. And I'm going to say to you, Auditor DiZoglio, that if you would like to utilize this program and play this, we'll sign off on it so that you can utilize this in any of the other 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts that may help you gain some footing and some traction in being able to get done what needs to get done. But I would like to, for example, say in our district here, we're talking with Senator Feingold, who said when we asked the question about being able to audit the financials of the State House relative to financials and contracts, his statement is that I've said many times that I favor transparency. While the details are being worked out, the auditor and the legislative leadership, I remain available to answer any questions my constituents might have. So that's an outright invitation for you to be able to make that call. Also, we got another response, and this was from Representative Ryan Hamilton, who makes reference to the fact that he strong advocate for transparency and will continue to advocate for and represent the residents of Methuen and Haverhill, and that's fine. He goes on to say he has serious constitutional concerns about this question 1, particularly the potential violation of the separation of powers, and that is having to do with the executive branch and the legislative branch. I'd like to read a couple of other responses, but can you address that question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Representative Hamilton is saying the same thing that his speaker is saying to his constituents, which is the same argument that they used to oppose our efforts to audit the legislature to begin with. And they can have all the concerns they want to have. It doesn't change the fact that they are violating the law right now. This debate was had, we won, and they're ignoring the law. And that's really it. So, it's a shame that those types of arguments continue to be made against what has been actually settled as the law now, in order to excuse violating it. Some people, can decide to buck like you said, the officer when they get pulled over on the side of the road. It doesn't change the fact that officer still reserves the right to give the ticket if you were breaking the law. You can disagree. You can say, I don't think I was going that fast. I disagree with you. I don't think that the speed limit should be 65 miles an hour. It should be, 75 or 80. And you can debate it with that police officer. I mean, that's your right. But does that change the law? No, it doesn't, right? So what we have right now is we have representatives like Representative Hamilton and like the speaker, who he is, they're both Representative Hamilton and the speaker have the same argument. They are together in that argument. And what they're saying to us is essentially that because they disagree with the law, they're not going to follow it. And that's concerning. I have much respect for our local legislators. I actually work really well with them for the most part. And, that should continue to be the case. We have a lot of work to do on behalf of the residents of Haverhill and our shared communities. That doesn't change the fact, however, that the law is being blatantly violated. And if there are concerns, they need to be brought to a court. So if representatives locally have any issue with the constitutionality, then they should be willing to say that they're going to seek an SJC opinion, because that's actually the right of the legislature. Whereas I have to go through the Attorney General's office, because my office, according to statute, has to be represented by the Attorney General in order to get access to court. The legislature doesn't have to be represented by the Attorney General to get an SJC opinion. So it remains very concerning to me that we have legislators saying things about the constitutionality as being their concern, while simultaneously saying, on the other hand, that they are refusing to ask the Supreme Judicial Court to weigh in about the constitutionality. It's simply an excuse, and it is inexcusable that residents asked us to follow this law, to be transparent about our financials and our processes and procedures, and that these excuses continue to be made. Those excuses have no place in state government.
Can you tell me, with what you just said previously, you said at the heart of the matter, this is not really something new conceptually. You said this was actually being done in the past, but that in recent history, the state legislature modified that to disallow that to occur, correct?
Yes, so actually, I'm not the first Italian-American auditor to try to pick this fight, so to speak. It was actually former boxer and auditor Joe DiNucci, who was going in for his routine audit of the state legislature. And the Speaker of the House back then, Charlie Flaherty, Speaker Flaherty, had made the decision that he did not want to allow the auditor to perform his required duties. Auditor DiNucci pushed back on that, and he pushed back hard, and he fought hard to be able to conduct that audit. He brought it to the Attorney General's office, like I did, and he asked the Attorney General to weigh in. The Attorney General at the time said, well, there's confusion about this. Maybe you should file a bill to try to clarify this in the law, since the Speaker is pushing back. The Speaker is very powerful, obviously. And so Auditor Joe DiNucci did file a bill back then and, fought for that bill to pass to give him explicit authority, even more than what the law already said. Because remember, the law already had said all departments of the Commonwealth are to be audited by the auditor. But because the Speaker was violating the law, Auditor DiNucci filed a bill. But as you can imagine, because the Speaker is in charge of what gets passed and what doesn't get passed, that never passed. It never saw the light of day. And since then, it was in the early 90s that occurred, we have seen a period of unprecedented scandal and corruption follow that time period. It's actually been since the early 90s that we saw 3 speakers indicted and many other issues and concerns come up. So it does make one wonder, what that correlation is all about. But there is indeed a correlation between when the audits stopped and when that period of unprecedented scandal and corruption began.
Wow. That's, the fact is, with what you're trying to do, as you say, falls within the bailiwick of your job description. And examples of some of the things that you have already done that the audience needs to know is that I've got one here as an example, the audit of the Department of Early Education Care. Now, when you audited that in your conclusions. Basically, on any audit you do, you modify or you scrutinize what the procedures happen to be, and to modify that, to correct that, to have that follow in proper form and protocol. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So you've done that, for example, in an audit of the Department of Early Education and Care.
Right. And it's important to say, Frank, we don't have the authority to require any of these entities to do what we're recommending. What we do is we look at processes and procedures, and I actually see what you have over there. So you have the MBTA.
Right.
We have a commuter rail stop right here in downtown Haverhill and over in Bradford, and I have one near my house too. But I will tell you, we've audited the MBTA. We've audited Early Education and Care.
Municipal Police Training.
We audited the Municipal Police Training Academy, and we've told these entities about some of the failures and some of the potential solutions that exist for the purposes, Frank, of helping make government work better. That is what the auditor's office exists to do.
Did you get any pushback from these other organizations, or were they, what you did for them, was what you did for them helpful in modifying and having greater specificity with their protocol?
Absolutely. So we, generally speaking, understand that when we go into different entities to audit, that the pom-poms are not going to be brought out for us, Frank, as the auditors, when you think about it. Anybody sitting at home knows that if you hear the word auditor and it's about you, you probably sit there, even if you did everything right, and you get a little tense, right? Because you're just hoping, you think, man, did I cross that T? Did I dot that I? Did I save that receipt, right? So it can be a little nerve-wracking. It can be very nerve-wracking if you're as organized as both of us, right? We've talked about, we have all of our papers everywhere, right? This looks like my office. Yeah. But what I will tell you is, we understand that. We go in, we try to put folks at ease, and we understand that it can be stressful. And sometimes there is pushback about the finding, or there's pushback about what we want to look at, why we want to look at it. But there is not pushback about the fact that our office is authorized to look at those documents. We have every right to look at those documents. They are public documents that are publicly funded documents. And we go in, we do our jobs, and we report back on what we see to you, the taxpayer. And that's what's incredibly important to understand, is that we don't have authority to require any action by these agencies. We simply provide essentially public journalism, so to speak, where we will look at what happened, write a report about it, and then give it to you, the taxpayers, so that you can make informed decisions. And we'll give it to them to say, here are some ways that you can make improvements. If anybody doesn't want that, you have to wonder, why? What are they hiding? What are they so afraid of, right?
You made that statement. I did not. But the fact is, you're talking about putting a light on these things.
100%. Look, this is about shining a light in the dark areas of state government. And again, look, most entities that we audit have findings, so to speak. That's what they're called. We have findings where we will cite them for some sort of inefficiency. It's very rare that an agency, gets a perfect score. And if they do, it's generally speaking because we had a time constraint and it was a more basic compliance audit that we conducted due to those time constraints and lack of resources. But when we do these more comprehensive reviews, generally speaking, you have some issues that you are identifying to the agency because humans and not robots work there. Human beings work in these agencies, and human beings are not perfect, right? We have challenges, we have inconsistencies from time to time, and we have failures from time to time, right? So what we do is we go in and we identify where those gaps exist, again, for the purpose of fulfilling our mission statement, which is to make government work better. Our mission is not to just point to what's wrong and, cite them for bad behavior. Our mission is to help them to improve services so that our tax dollars are being used more efficiently and effectively. And I have to say this too, there's a lot of fodder, about what's happening at the federal level. And I get asked quite often.
I don't think it's lost upon anybody that what you're looking to go ahead and do, we're coming up on time, short time, we've got a few more questions left, but what you're looking to do is not unfamiliar on a national level with the Department of Government Efficiency, and that's DOGE.
But what
the fact is, you decided to do this before they decided to do it, so I'm going to ask, do you think it might have been a little bit of an inspiration?
I don't think anyone in D.C. is paying attention to anything we're doing in the Office of State Auditor.
They did with Mitt Romney's healthcare program, and that's what they modeled the national one after.
Well,
supposedly.
I will say this: the very big difference between what is going on here and what's going on in D.C. is that your state auditor is elected by the people of this Commonwealth. And I am a constitutional officer, so if you like what I'm doing, you can decide to vote for me, for my platform, and to continue the work that I am doing. If you do not like what I am doing, you can vote against me and you can have me move on from doing this work. Also, something that's different, that ballot question, that was a question that was put to the people in a democratic process to where people got to decide, do we want this or don't we want this? The other thing is too,
if it was not constitutional, the Attorney General would have never allowed it to occur.
It should have, if the Attorney General thought it was constitutional, it was her obligation to have it filed as a constitutional amendment instead. And she had every opportunity to require it to be filed as such when the Senate objected to its appearance on the ballot. She overruled that objection by sending it to the ballot in its current form, and now has a duty to defend the law that she herself approved for ballot appearance in the November elections. And I hope that she will do so.
I see the squeeze coming on here. But we've got less than 5 minutes left, but what I'd like to do is just address a couple of the other responses that we got from the state legislators in the Haverhill area. And this is something that the viewing audience can do if you're watching this from any other jurisdiction. You can ask and see what your state legislators happen to say about this as well. We're talking here about a response from Senator Payano, who says that transparency and accountability are critical to the public government. It says that the legislature has established oversight mechanisms, and he supports the effort to strengthen public access to our work, respecting the constitutional framework that ensures independent and effective legislative process. When that says all the right words, and I understand that a state representative or a senator does not have exclusive authority over everyone else. They're just their jurisdiction. And these folks might be feeling pressure as well. But the key terms that are in all of these communications are transparency. They're in favor of it. But then there's a question of constitutionality, which you just went over, specifically with the Attorney General. The most elaborate response we happen to get was from our state representative, Andy Vargas, who says that he supports a professional and independent audit that is constitutional. The House is routinely audited and expenses are publicly available through the Comptroller's Office. The House recently went further and adopted rules that now allow audits on the House to be annual. And these are called, here are the real constitutional challenges proposed by the performance audit of the legislature led by the auditor. And they cite some different things here, basic relative to separation
Frank,
of executive and such.
Look, here's what I'm going to say, because we are running short on time here.
I understand.
Those are really great excuses for breaking the law, but the law is the law. And I'm going to say this because I'm friendly with all of our legislators, just like many of the folks watching today are. We all live locally. We all work together. We all mostly also just voted for my office to conduct an audit. And what we are hearing is all of our legislators telling you why they're not allowing what you voted for to occur. So I will remain professional and friendly and working together with all of my colleagues in the legislature, as it is my responsibility to do. But I will also speak the truth and speak it in love, because I do love my colleagues locally. We need to follow the law. And having these debates, it was welcomed during the time that this was up for debate. This is no longer up for debate. So all of the reasons that we are being given for why my office is being blocked from auditing the legislature are no longer relevant. The law is the law, and the law needs to be followed. So great debate points. Those debate points were made very clear during the whole time that all of our legislators were trying to ensure that folks didn't vote yes for this, but we did vote yes for this. Clearly, we don't really know who voted yes or no from our legislative delegation. Clearly, our legislative delegation wants to let us know that they support transparency. I believe that they support transparency. I think that those statements that they made are absolutely accurate in terms of what they're stating about their desire for more transparency. What I think we all need to come to terms with, however, is that the law is the law. And 72% of our communities voted for it. And the city of Haverhill said the Office of State Auditor, your former senator, your former state rep, you know who I am. You know who I have been. I've been very transparent about my goals, what I want to do, what I want to look at. I am here in the community with everybody quite often. You can find me downtown, normally hanging out at G's or at the Tap or at Wang's. All these plugs for all the great local restaurants and more. But what I will tell you is that I have been having an incredibly challenging time in Boston at the State House because I don't have the support of my good friends in the local state delegation like I would prefer to have, and I know like taxpayers deserve. So it is great to hear that everybody's supporting transparency. Now, if everybody could follow the law and say that they believe the law should be implemented and call on their leadership to follow the law, that is what really we need to see happening. Because breaking the law and saying we support transparency, it's not really acceptable, right? So we all need to get on the same page, work together, and make sure that this gets done. And again, I say that with love because I do have great respect for my good friends in the legislative delegation. And these types of healthy disagreements need to occur in order for us to have progress. We need to be able to say that we disagree on something and have that conversation. And you just heard the disagreement from, for example, Representatives Hamilton and Representative Vargas, who both voted against following this law in the House of Representatives recently. That was their right. They had a right to do that. And we have a right to express our opinion and say, with all due respect, we believe that the law got voted for already, and we do expect that when it's a 72% margin of victory like that the law will be followed and that we can all work together to move forward through this time period.
Let's hope that this program has helped you get that message out, not only to the populace that's watching this program in this jurisdiction, but we'll make this program available to you to play in other jurisdictions all across Massachusetts if you like, along with the phone numbers of the State House for the state representatives and their senators, along with the telephone number of the Attorney General's office to try to move things forward. We appreciate you being here, State Auditor Diana DiZoglio.
Thank you so much,
to be able
Frank.
to shed some light
Thanks
on
so much,
this
everyone,
and to be helpful in this ever important question that faces the finances and the contracts that we're all going to be subject to by our state legislature. Thank you very much for being here. We hope to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me as always.
You bet. And we hope that this program has been a point of reference for you. And until next time, my name is Frank Novak. Thanks very much for watching.